When we look towards the future and development in our area, we have the obvious projects that we've been working on, the West Shoreway project. We continue to work with the City of Cleveland on a plan to get accessibility to the lakefront to help open up, part of the port and the lakefront with the city's vision of the lakefront plan. We broke the project up into 2 phases. ODOT will take responsibility for the first phase, which will get the connectivity from Battery Park to Edgewater Park. We've committed $49 million, give or take a few, to that project. The other project that a lot of people are talking about, even in this room, is Opportunity Corridor. And we are working with the City of Cleveland, with the Department of Development, on how we move that project forward. We're in the planning process with that project. We're working through the process very closely with the City of Cleveland and the Department of Development. And right now we still haven't decided on what that corridor is going to look like, and that's part of the planning process on what that corridor is going to look like. And most importantly, with the 2 gentlemen that I have here, is we all have projects that we're working together. Our Interbelt overlaps the Burke Lakefront Airport, and of course with the relocation of the port, we need to have communications with how I-90 is going to connect with the new port location.
Right. And Adam, as you can talk a little bit more about, we know the port relocation is a huge undertaking and takes 23 hours and 59 minutes a day of your time, 7 days a week. But you're still so active in other key projects and development activities that are going on both in the Central Business District and in the region. Could you touch base a little bit on where some of those key projects stand?
Sure. I'll just tick off a few examples. Port moves to East 55th Street area around East 55th. We would like to become some sort of maritime district. And by maritime district, we mean manufacturing, added jobs, new tax base, companies that might actually use the port as well, so self-reinforcing. So we would like to spearhead with the community a new vision for about 1,000 acres that is right next to this new port, and that's the strip of old industrial property or old industrial use along the waterfront south of 90. It's traversed by a cross-country railroad that runs New York to Chicago. We've got an excellent highway system that we'll work on getting even better access to, but it's a perfect environment for us to do our work. And again, if we have 900 ships a year that call on the port area, port district. If we had 9,000 ships a year, I'm fond of saying it shouldn't mean anything to this community unless there's benefit coming from that. And that benefit is going to be investment environment that is more attractive than it is today. And we think an increasing role for ports and the role of logistics playing a role in being a weapon for Ohio in this region is quite important. So 1,000 acres we'd like to be part of transforming around the new port. We will start developing a plan with the business community and with the community around the existing port property. We'll look to start that in earnest this fall. It's a visioning process of taking the lakefront plan that has already been decided and turning it into a development strategy. And that's how you connect across railroad tracks and what sort of development and what sort of density and what sort of infrastructure is necessary to take that forward. And that is, again, an awfully unique opportunity. And we know a lot of people are going to be very interested in that because it is the region's downtown. We happen to own a part of that, but it becomes the region's waterfront, and we're quite sensitive to that.
Great. And Ricky, as you look at the operations for the Department of Port Control at the city, we have about 400 acres on the waterfront with Burke and a new master plan. About the same, I imagine, out at CLE, plus the advantage of NASA to your neighbor to the west. Could you talk a little bit beyond the airport itself, some of the thought process that you and Mayor Jackson are putting into place for development?
I remember coming to Cleveland for my interview, and what seemed like the 57th floor of the Key Tower at that time, overlooking Burke Lakefront Airport, and I thought, gosh, Baltimore, Cape Town, Chicago, there's so much we could do with this waterfront. And so the mayor came up with this vision of having Burke Lakefront Airport become a model where general aviation and mixed-use development comes together. And so what you'll find in the coming months is that we are negotiating today with two major tenants for Berkeley Lakefront Airport that we think will breathe new life into the airport. But we're also preparing, excuse me, to put an RFP, is that a signal? To put an RFP out on the street for a developer to begin developing mixed-use development. We're talking restaurant, office space, retail, on airport proper, but not within the airport runway safety areas. And so we have some exciting stuff coming at Burke. I could talk for years about Cleveland-Hopkins and the Aerotropolis, but perhaps I'll address that in one of the questions.
That'd be great if we don't stop talking right now. I think Lee will get the hook for me. So Lee, back to you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a special program featuring speakers Ricky Smith, Director of Cleveland's Department of Port Control, Bonnie Teeuwen, Deputy Director of ODOT's District 12, and Adam Wasserman, President of the Cleveland-Cuyahoga County Port Authority, and moderator Deb Janik of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. We will return to our speakers in a minute for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate questions now and remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. Now we will return to our speakers for our traditional City Club questions and answer period. We welcome questions from everybody, including guests. Holding the microphones today are Special Program Committee members Sue Nelson and Ellie Sullivan. And our first question, please.
Okay.
For Ms. Teeuwen, can you share a little bit about what ODOT's role will be in looking into high-speed rail transportation within the state?
A few years ago, probably 10 years ago, there was a study that was done for high-speed rail between Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. There was some problems with that, the initial cost of the construction, the cost to the actual travelers. I think now with the $4 a gallon of gasoline, we have to look at that a little closer, revisit that. There's some discussions about the possibility of not necessarily a high-speed rail, but utilizing the existing rail that we have to kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak. But those are all things that in our, we have a 21st Century Transportation Task Force that is a accumulation of experts of different modes, economic development, of how we approach transportation in the future. These are some of the things that we have to look at in the future. Transportation is going to be completely different in the future just because of the fuel cost. And stay tuned. I think in a few years, if we're sitting here again, we'll have some different answers as far as how we're going to approach some things.
Okay, for Mr. Smith and Mr. Wasserman, has there been consideration for green design in your future plans for both of your organizations?
The answer is yes. We making a significant effort. I think operating a port and then building a new port gives us an opportunity but also an obligation to define differently how we would operate, how a port will operate. I think ports around the country are going through some metamorphosis. We have the chance in Cleveland to be ahead of the pack, and we'll attempt to be at the forefront of that. Why? Well, because we're building a new port and we have the chance to design it the way we want. No other community, no other port in the world right now has that opportunity. So that's the latest design, that's the latest operational features, that's where water meets land, and then operations of how ports operate once you're on the property itself. We've just hired, she's not started yet, but an environmental manager. Will be the first port on the Great Lakes to have such a position. We're a small little organization, but we've made the commitment, our board of directors has made the commitment to be the greenest port on the lakes, and to the extent we can manage it, one of the greenest in the world because of our size and the ability for us to, again, build a new port. We have already undertaken a series of measures in terms of how we operate today, only to accelerate work with NOACA on diesel emissions. We've been one of the handful of ports that started with a national rollout of what we call an environmental management system, again, changing how certain activities are managed on the port itself, and then implementing that. So it cost money and it cost time, and we were one of the few ports to start that.